All right, folks, buckle up because tonight we're diving into the wild world of trade and politics. Now, these two might seem as different as, say, a chinchilla and a chainsaw, but trust me, they're more connected than you think. See, when we talk about trade, we're not just talking about shipping bananas from here to Timbuktu. We're talking about a complex system that impacts everything from the price of your morning coffee to, you guessed it, the political landscape. Think of it like this. Trade creates winners and losers. Some folks benefit from cheaper imports or expanded markets, while others see their jobs disappear or their industries crumble. And guess what? These folks don't just sit back and take it. They get political, they form alliances, lobby governments, and vote for policies that protect their interests. So, yeah, trade and politics. It's a tangled web, my friends, a real geopolitical spider web, and tonight we're going to untangle it. Now, to understand how trade messes with politics, we got to understand how it creates these winners and losers in the first place. Enter the Stolper-Samuelson theorem. Don't worry, it's not as scary as it sounds. It's basically a fancy way of saying that when countries open up to free trade, some people within those countries are going to make bank, while others, well, not so much. Here's the gist. Every country has stuff it's good at producing, right? Maybe it's got tons of oil, or maybe it's churning out smartphones like nobody's business. Whatever it is, that's their abundant factor. Now, when they start trading freely, they're going to produce even more of that abundant stuff because, hey, the world's their oyster now. But here's the catch. To make all that extra stuff, they need more of the resources that go into it. Maybe it's skilled labor, maybe it's raw materials, whatever. The point is, the demand for those resources goes up and so does their price. That's good news for the folks who own those resources, but bad news for everyone else who now has to pay more for them, see? Winners and losers. It's like a messed up game show where the prize is economic stability and the consolation prize is a cardboard box and a one-way ticket to Struggle City. So we've got winners and losers thanks to the magic of trade. What happens next? Well, they don't just shake hands and call it a day, they pick sides. They form alliances based on their economic interests. And those alliances, my friends, they spill over into the political arena. Let's break it down. Landowners. In countries with lots of land, landowners love free trade when it means they can export their agricultural goods and rake in the dough. They'll back politicians who support open markets and free trade agreements. Workers, on the other hand, are a mixed bag. Skilled workers in industries that benefit from trade, they're usually on board. But unskilled workers who see their jobs outsourced to countries with cheaper labor. They're not throwing any parties for free trade. They're more likely to support politicians who promise protectionist measures, like tariffs and quotas. Capitalists, owners of capital, like factory owners and investors, tend to favor free trade when it means they can access cheaper raw materials and expand their markets. They'll throw their weight behind politicians who promote globalization and free market policies. The point is, trade shuffles the political deck. It creates new battle lines based on economic interests, and those battle lines, well, they often determine who gets to call the shots. Section 4, Four Flavors of Economies, Rogowski's classification. Now, to really understand how this whole trade politics tango plays out, we got to bring in a guy named Ronald Rogowski. He's a political scientist who came up with a handy-dandy way of classifying economies based on their factor endowments, basically what they've got a lot of. He says there are four main flavors. One, land abundant, labor abundant. Think Argentina in the early 20th century. Lots of land, lots of people. Two, land abundant, labor scarce. Think Australia, mate. Wide open spaces, not so many people. Three, land scarce, labor abundant. Think Bangladesh today, densely populated, not a whole lot of arable land. Four, land scarce, labor scarce. Think Switzerland. Nestled in the Alps, not exactly known for sprawling plains or a massive workforce. Why does this matter? Because according to Rogowski, the type of economy a country has influences how it responds to changes in trade. It's all about who stands to win and lose, and how those winners and losers flex their political muscle. Section 5. Open for business, the impact of trade exposure. So we've got our four economic flavors, courtesy of Mr. Rogowski. Now let's stir things up by adding a dash of trade exposure. What happens when a country suddenly opens up to more trade? Or conversely, when it starts to pull back and embrace protectionism, well, it's like shaking up a snow globe. Everything gets thrown into chaos, and then it settles into a new pattern. A pattern shaped by the winners and losers of this whole trade game. In economies with lots of land and labor, like Argentina back in the day, increased trade tends to empower landowners and urban workers. Why? Because they benefit from exporting agricultural goods and manufactured products, respectively. This often leads to political systems that favor free trade and urban interests. But in economies with scarce land and abundant labor, like Bangladesh, it's a different story. Increased trade can hurt unskilled workers, who face competition from countries with even cheaper labor. This can fuel political instability and support for protectionist policies. See, trade exposure is a catalyst. It accelerates existing political and economic tensions, creating winners and losers and setting the stage for political change. Section 6, History in Action, Trade Shaping Politics. Now, I know what you're thinking, John. This is all very theoretical. Got any real-world examples? Of course I do. History is chock full of examples of trade-shaping political landscapes. Let's rewind to 19th century Britain. Remember the Corn Laws? No? Well, they were tariffs on imported grain designed to protect British landowners from foreign competition. These laws benefited the landed gentry, but they also made bread more expensive for everyone else. This led to widespread protests, riots, and eventually the repeal of the Corn Laws in 1846. It was a major victory for free trade and the burgeoning industrial class, and it reshaped British politics for decades to come. Or how about the rise of protectionism in the 1930s? The Great Depression hit and countries around the world started throwing up trade barriers like there was no tomorrow. They slapped tariffs on imports, hoping to protect their own industries and jobs. This, of course, backfired spectacularly, leading to a global trade war that only deepened the depression. It was a stark reminder that protectionism, while tempting in tough times, can often do more harm than good. These are just two examples, folks, but the point is clear. Trade has real-world consequences. It shapes political alliances, influences government policies, and can even spark revolutions. It's not just about economics, it's about power and who gets to wield it. Section 7, the bottom line, trade's enduring influence. So, there you have it, folks. Trade and politics, a match made in, well, not heaven, but definitely somewhere interesting. We've seen how trade creates winners and losers, how those winners and losers form political alliances, and how this whole messy dance plays out in different types of economies. The bottom line is this: trade matters. It's not just about spreadsheets and cargo ships, it's about people, power, and the choices we make as a global community. Understanding how trade shapes politics is crucial if we want to build a more just and equitable world, a world where the benefits of trade are shared more widely and the downsides are mitigated. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go enjoy a banana. And while I'm at it, I might just ponder the complex geopolitical forces that brought this delicious fruit to my table, because as we've learned tonight, even something as simple as a banana can be political.